feature presentation.
He'll be fine on the mountain.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series.
Watson, touchdown! Hunter Renfrow.
He got him, and it's all over. Coastal Carolina rules the roost. They win the championship. And South Carolina has won the national championship.
The Citadel baseball team has done it again, but this time the Bulldogs beat one of the top teams in the country. They are giant killers. Get the ball to Bennett. He does.
Gamecocks are in the Final Four.
And the guy that led him to that Final Four will be here in just a little bit as well. Greetings and a good Wednesday afternoon, and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, and very proudly presented by Motley Rice, driven by Stokes Volkswagen, StokesVW.com, MotleyRice.com. Causes, not just cases. Here till 2 o'clock this afternoon. You can find us on the JB and Goldwater app. You can always head to JBandGoldwaterShow.com as well and find out all about us and find all of our available platforms and find us on social media at JB and Goldwater, individually at Sports Media JB and at Darren Goldwater. The Share Healthcare chat lines, as always, are lighting up early, only a couple of minutes into the program. ShareHealthcare.com, more affordable, more options, user-friendly. You can join right now by heading to sharehealthcare.com. If you don't have health care or health coverage and you're searching for it at an affordable rate to take care of your family in these crazy wild times, go right now, sharehealthcare.com. Check it out, as low as $149 a month. Coming up on our program today, in just a little bit, we'll be joined by Frank Martin, head basketball coach of the South Carolina Gamecocks. He's going to pop in after their win last night to open the 21-22 season, 78-60 over USC Upstate at Colonial Life Arena. So we're certainly going to talk to him about that and some of the guys that are in the program. We'll ask him about Shane Beamer. How does that sound? Shane, of course, is coming off of a rather large win himself, the biggest win of his career this past weekend over Florida, which we're going to talk to J.C. Shurburtt about in hour number 2, owner of the Big Spur. The college football playoff rankings out last night. We'll get into those as well. So it's another full day around here on JB and Goldwater, Darren. But it only feels appropriate to give you some of what happened in the scoreboard last night in the opening night of hoops. A big night for the Champions Classic, a big night for the Lady Gamecocks. But how about those Citadel Bulldogs heading to Pittsburgh? Kind of a rough evening in the ACC. As a matter of fact, it was a really rough evening in the ACC if you had to take on a military college, because the Citadel wins and Navy upsets 25th ranked Virginia last night as well. So Dogs go on the road. They were, I believe, 0-46 against the ACC. They're now 1-46, and it's their first win over a P5 program, as Darren has here on the screen, since 1989. Congratulations, Duggar and Citadel basketball.
Dude, they smoked them. I was paying attention to a lot of the early basketball games. Then it kind of rolls into 7 o'clock, and I was paying attention to some of the early college basketball lines, because a lot of times Vegas misses on some of those, and even the huge ones are sometimes too small. You saw that a bunch last night. There were some close games as well. Pittsburgh was only a 10-point favorite. It was one that opened my eyes like, what? How is that possible? And as soon as I turned in, Citadel early first half, like 10 minutes left in the first half, they're up 18 points. Yeah. They controlled this game. And what Pittsburgh's coach was saying afterwards, it wasn't just that Citadel beat them. Citadel took it to them. Just the sheer effort, the cuts, the just the force with which the Citadel was playing and the energy, right, that it takes to actually sustain that throughout. He said they never really recovered. So as a personal note, as a guy who championed the Duggar Balcom to the Citadel, and I was thrilled when it happened, and I didn't like how close it became, that I don't know how long this is going to last, and he fixes it a little bit last year to start this year that way with a program that is close to my heart. Man, I'm just personally, and I tweeted this out last night, it made me smile. I'm happy for Duggar. I'm happy for all my friends who are over there, and I'm happy for the kids. I mean, it's a hell of a win, man. It's a hell of a win to start the year.
Absolutely, man. They should be celebrating this. They've got Morris College coming up on Friday, Darren, so it looks like a good start to the year. Yeah, they absolutely should be just enjoying this for at least today. Get back to work tomorrow. This is an enormous moment for Citadel basketball. I know it's under the radar in this state right now. It's still football season, and you got the Lady Gamecocks ranked #1 in the country, and there's some other big things going on out there. But this is something that needs to be recognized. Good, congrats to the Dogs for literally firing on all cylinders last night up at Pittsburgh. By the way, their next crack at an ACC opponent, November 22nd at Duke, who last night did beat Kentucky in a 10-9 matchup in the Champions Classic. Duke is 9th in the nation. Kentucky probably no longer 10th. It was a 79-71 final there. So the Blue Devils get the last go-around off to a good start for Coach K, as he was recognized up at Madison Square Garden, Darren, and we're going to see a lot of this throughout the next few months. You better get used to it. When Duke's on TV, especially in different arenas outside of Cameron, there's going to be a lot of tipping the cap to maybe the best basketball coach we've ever seen outside of John Wooden. This is it was a pretty neat moment last night there, so congratulations to him. By the way, the other upset that happened in the ACC was Miami of Ohio taking down Georgia Tech 72-69 last night. So 3 upsets in the Atlantic Coast Conference, but also, of course, headlined by the Duke win over Kentucky. So, but it was a good night of basketball. Good to be back and see some dribbling on the hardwood again. Carolina takes down USC upstate. Elsewhere across the state, we'll get to Dawn and the Lady G's in a minute, but they win by 9, 66-57 over NC State. You already know about the Citadel. Charleston Southern last night, 118-71 over Johnson and Wales, and Clemson survived PC. They pulled away 64-53, but it wasn't looking pretty for a while for the Tigers, but they got it done, and they'll get Wofford coming up on Friday evening up there at Little John.
One other hoops note, Ohio State came that close to losing at home to Akron. And it's funny, I was watching this one a lot with my daughter, and I was explaining, Akron probably shouldn't be messing around much with Ohio State, but to these kids at Akron, this is like their Super Bowl. This is I should be playing for Ohio State, and they're leading most of the way. Ohio State comes back to take a 3-point lead late, and then a 3-pointer ties it with I don't know how many couple of seconds left. Almost pulled it off, and Ohio State wins it by 1.
The what do we call that? The LeBron James clash or something like that. He's from Akron, right?
Yeah.
But he's an Ohio State fan. But I think he's giving money to Akron. So
I believe so. But I mean, look, if you're a sports guy growing up in Ohio, you're more than likely an Ohio State fan. I mean, there's some Michigan tricklers over on both sides of that line there the other way. But I mean, you grow up, that's Columbus town. That's Ohio State territory. So yeah, a lot of those Akron guys, it's similar to a lot of Akron's a bigger school, but similar to Citadel, to Charleston Southern, to state schools in South Carolina. When they play South Carolina and the Citadel, it's like, all right, in my head, I should be playing for them. This is my chance to play on that floor in that stadium and prove that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's how people feel about Dawn Staley's team right now. Talasia Cooper has just signed her letter of intent to play for the Lady G's. She's a top 20 prospect. She'll be in next year. Welcome to the Dawn Staley factory, Talasia, because last night you got to see a lot of what we talked about yesterday with Keith Alsep here, all those All-Americans out there That was an incredible challenge. Game one, a sold out arena on the road against a top 5 team who beat you last year in NC State. They threw out everything they could to try to knock off Carolina, and they got within a point, but they couldn't get it done. South Carolina held on to win 66-57, and then Friday they literally are leaving Raleigh and going straight to South Dakota, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, to play South Dakota in the Invitational. That game is on ESPN News Friday night from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. At 9:30 Friday night on ESPN News is South Carolina and Princeton in men's basketball. So ESPN News on Friday night is your home for Gamecock basketball. If you want to get it all in one place, don't forget that. ESPN News Friday evening, starting at 7 o'clock. You got the ladies and then you have the men. So order in the pizza and get ready to rock and roll. It's going to be a hoops weekend of sorts on Friday and Sunday, at least. I'm saying, which, football in between. But that was a great win last night for the Gamecocks, and Aaliyah Boston didn't have a huge day. The All-American, she's going to have plenty of those. But that was an enormous win for South Carolina, and they'll just try to keep that train rolling. And we all know what it looks like moving forward because they have scheduled incredibly difficult. On the Share Healthcare chat lines, Craig chimes in. Gamecock fans took over. I heard the game. Gamecock chant in the second half. You're right. There was a lot of those up there as well. The quote-unquote fams travel well for Dawn. A lot of students last night in Colonial Life Arena for the Gamecock men who were able to pull away from USC Upstate 78-60. Also, Craig in the Share Healthcare chat line. Somebody help Craig out. He's getting tired already. Gray was impressive too. He can even guard the perimeter for a 7-footer. He'll only get better under Martin's coaching. We're gonna ask Frank about Josh Gray coming up here in just a little bit. As a matter of fact, Frank will be joining us here shortly on the JB and Goldwater show. Yeah, that guy moves. He's quick as a cat for being 7 feet, and he's 260 pounds. That was USC Upstate is, not a really good program. They're actually a pretty well coached program. It's just hard to get some players up there. They're working on it. That was a good win last night. Let me remind everybody of something here. There were, by my count, 9 new faces on the floor for South Carolina last night. 9. That takes a while, and Frank historically plays a lot of dudes, especially early in the year. He kind of whittles it down once you start getting into the conference season. So he played a lot of people last night, including his own son, who got in there against his former program in USC Upstate. But they're off to a good start, 1-0. And again, it's USC Upstate. Yeah, I get it. You got to put it in perspective, things of that nature. But over the last, few months, there's been a lot of doom and gloom about this program. All these new players, who's Frank and what's he going to look like, and we're going to hear what he sounds like in a little bit. But Darren, if they hit a few more shots, which you can tell, I don't know how much you saw of the game, you can tell they have shooters. Like this Stevenson kid, he can shoot. Mm-hmm. That Reese kid, they can shoot. Like there's a different. You've been around basketball, dude. You know when you see a shooter and when you don't. Sometimes shooters miss shots, but that doesn't mean that they can't shoot. There's a clear difference in some of the guys that are here now versus some of those who were here the last couple of years as to whether they can fire them up and get them in there. They've got a couple of those guys. They'll just have to knock them down.
The biggest thing for me, yes, that's true. But the biggest thing for me is you've heard a lot about Frank Martin's health and how healthy he is now and how he's back to being himself. Curious to kind of see that for ourselves here in a little bit too. But that translates, right? That translates not only from his perspective and him personally feeling better and kind of just, you know what it's like when you're not feeling like yourself for whatever reason. Once you do, you can then get back to the things that make you who you are. And part of that for Frank Martin is instilling this intense defensive effort. So the takeaway for me last night was that, number one, okay, it does look like Frank is back to being Frank. Number two, it's a win you should have, but you get a lot of the guys in there. You get a lot of guys some work, and that's the progression that this team needs. It's about steadily building. I mean, there's some non-cons in there early, but it's about steadily building your way towards SEC play because, yeah, you're right. 9 newcomers are on this roster. So it's a brand new year. It's a brand new time right now. And how are these guys going to mesh? How are the freshmen? How are the transfers? How are the holdovers? How's everybody going to mesh together? And now that everyone is healthy and you're not going to go weeks at a time, multiple times, not even getting on the court and not able to execute what makes Frank Martin and his teams who they are, defense, if you're not able to execute that and you're not able to work on that, you're not going to translate that. That's what is the takeaway for me from that first game, that the first step of that has happened.
And to back up your comments, the coaches from USC Upstate said after the game, that's what Frank teams do. They wear you down in the first half. By the time you get to the end of the second half, you don't have much juice left in the tank, and they didn't. This is going to be a challenge this weekend, boys and girls. Princeton, a couple years ago, tournament team, they're good. They returned pretty much almost everybody. Western Kentucky basketball school always has players. Minnesota basketball school always has players. This is a good challenge for South Carolina this weekend up in Asheville starting on Friday. Again, it's a full Gamecock night on ESPN News. Frank Martin is coming up here shortly. We'll get to him in just a little bit, but we're going to get to some college football playoff stuff in a moment. First, though, a message from our friends at iHelp Consulting. Got my buddy Daniel Owens with iHelp Consulting here. Daniel, you save businesses money. How do you do it?
The first thing I like to do is analyze their credit card processing statement. I can find quick savings in minutes, and then we go from there.
What kind of savings?
Hundreds, thousands of dollars. We recently saved an auto repair shop $10,000 just in processing fees, and that was huge for them.
$10,000. So what else can you find?
All types of things. We help the church save over $5,000 in insurance. We help the small business save $500 a year on the internet. The list goes on. There are so many ways to save money, and we know how to do it.
What are your fees, Daniel?
Well, a lot of people assume that we have them. We don't. We charge a percentage of the savings, so you don't pay us until you save.
But what if you don't find any savings?
Then you don't pay us. It's that simple.
So if you're a business owner, this is a no-brainer. Let you take a look. At worst, it's a free consult, and at best, you're saving thousands of dollars. How can I help you? Help yourself by visiting ihelpconsulting.com or call or text Daniel at 843-372-5713. 12:17 on this Wednesday afternoon. Awaiting Frank Martin last night. College football playoff rankings released. Not surprised, Darren. It's exactly what we thought it would be, pretty much by default, with the exception of Georgia. They no doubt earned number 1, 2, 3, 4, Bama, Oregon, and Ohio State, and then there's Cincinnati and Michigan. So they all just slid up with Michigan State's loss. If you are watching our program, you can see Darren has the full top 25 on the screen. If you are listening, following Michigan at 6, it's Michigan State, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, and Oklahoma State rounding out the top 10. Oklahoma, though, did not move, and that's because they did not play. But they will play this weekend at Baylor. It's a 8-13 matchup by the college football playoff rankings. And then there's Texas A&M at 11. And so there's so much talk of arguing who the top 4 is right now. There's so much. Does Cincinnati deserve to be in there? Can they get in there? We watch this every year, right? I mean, if you're in the top 5 or 6, and teams lose in front of you and you keep winning, you're be in there. I mean, it's just kind of the way it goes. Generally, for the most part. I think Cincinnati needs to start playing better.
Yes.
But the point is, like Michigan, they're at 6. Get good news, Michigan fans. Michigan State at 7. Good news. They all still play each other. They still have every opportunity to get in there.
Well, wait. Michigan lost to Michigan State a week ago, and Michigan is ahead of Michigan State.
Yeah. I didn't take as much exception to that simply because the week prior, I understand what you're talking about because the Oregon Ohio State thing. But I remember last week we were more talking about, yeah, all right, that's fine and dandy. He might have beat somebody in week 2 or week 3, or in this instance, I think 3 weeks ago. But
last week.
Who's a better team now?
Well, see that's my main problem with this.
Yeah.
With this time.
Oh, I get it. I understand it.
Yeah, because it's so recent. Because I'm willing to, if the year plays out, like we've talked about. Let's say Notre Dame goes ahead, they win out. Cincinnati wins out, but continues to win the way that they're winning, and things, and things shake out the right way. I'd probably be willing to say, okay, at this point, Notre Dame's a better team than Cincinnati. Michigan State just beat Michigan. Like Michigan's not suddenly a better team than Michigan State because Michigan State got upset. They just beat them. Yeah. So I'm in line with the folks who look at that and say, this is the committee laying the groundwork to say later in the year, if things work out a certain way, don't be shocked if a team bumps over a team, even though that team may have lost.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I see this, especially with the Big Ten, is they all still have to play each other. Michigan State, most notably, still has to go to Ohio State and still has to play Penn State. I mean, don't sleep on Maryland this week either, even though that game's at home. But and then with Michigan, they've got to go to Penn State coming up this week. Obviously, as you know, Darren, at noon on ABC. They have to go to Maryland, then they got to Ohio State. So you got 2 road contests. And then you got the rivalry game with the Buckeyes in the Big House, right? And then with Ohio State, they've got 3 ranked games left. So you got Purdue now all of a sudden. Of course, Purdue, I mean, they've earned it. They're at 19 per the rankings, 7 Michigan State, and they're on the road against Michigan. Clearly, Ohio State wins out. That story writes itself. They're in there. Where the hurdles are is what you just said between those 2 programs, Michigan and Michigan State, and the fact that Michigan got beaten by Michigan State now, 2 weekends ago, coming up 3 weekends ago. That's where there's some people with some controversy, which I understand it. I'm not saying that I don't understand it. Mm-hmm. The only thing I am saying is right now they have Oregon at 3, right?
Yes.
And Ohio State at 4. But Oregon beat Ohio State earlier in the year. So that's why they're at 3, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would have Ohio State probably at 3 over Oregon at 4. So, I'm trying to argue the others. I'm not really trying to argue it. I'm trying to see the other side as to, I understand that you want to pick the best teams. Who's best today? This is how we're going to rank our teams. And there's going to be discrepancy in that. I mean, who do you think's better right now, Michigan or Michigan State?
I think Michigan State is better.
I do too. I understand what they're doing, but I do
The only thing that's different is Michigan had a week off and they didn't lose. And Michigan State followed up the win with a loss. But it's so recent to me. I mean, we kind of talked about the scatterbrain rankings last week. Yep. If you're going to tell me Michigan's better than Michigan State, I mean, okay, I can buy that, even though they just lost to them. But if that's your logic, then you're going to tell me that Ohio State isn't better than Oregon at this point? Right. Where's your logic there? Yeah. And why is Oklahoma not moving, but Cincinnati bumps up to 5? Right. So there's a lot of, It feels like they're trying to do the right thing of, okay, who are the best 4 if they were to play today on a neutral field? And then after the 4, it's just it feels like they're setting us up for, okay, if this happens, then don't be surprised if we do this, this, then that, because we're showing you now that we're willing to do it.
Yeah, it seems like they released those initial rankings, and now that they had those initial rankings out, they're going just flat out week to week. This is just what we think this week, not based on last week. That's just what it looks like to me. I'm not trying to make an excuse or anything like that. It's just what it seems like, because there's not really a formula that we know of, that I know of. But Oklahoma's at Baylor this week, and I'll be interested to see if they go to Baylor and they beat them, and let's say they beat them fairly well. What will that do for them with Michigan State in front of them hosting Maryland at home? Let's say Michigan State wins the game, but Oklahoma has a better win on the road against the top 15 Baylor team. Do they hop them? Michigan this weekend is at Penn State. What if Michigan obviously loses that game, then clearly they're moving up. What if Michigan wins the game at Penn State, but Oklahoma once again has a better win on the road and this week-to-week model's in play? Does that mean that Oklahoma bounces both of them and goes up there to 6, 5?
Wouldn't that be nuts?
Who's Cincinnati play this week?
I am not sure.
USF, and they're terrible.
Oh, yeah.
South Florida is 2-7. So what if they go down there and do what they've been doing the last 3 weeks? Look like crap and win by 8 or 10 points. Is Oklahoma and those other two teams stumble or they struggle, but Oklahoma is a better win than them? Are they capable of moving up 3 or 4 spots? I guess.
If I'm a Cincinnati fan, here's my concern this week. Winning and winning huge doesn't matter. The only thing that would matter is if you win by a small margin, like you have been, or you lose, because then it's just a continuing pattern. Because if you win big, good, finally, you finally won big. If Oklahoma goes and beats Baylor and does so in relatively convincing fashion, because that's been Oklahoma's problem, just like Cincinnati. I mean, they haven't been able to really just put people away, especially teams they should absolutely be putting away. So if they can go out and beat Baylor, are they all of a sudden going to just shoot up the rankings, even though they've held steady for a week? That, I don't know. Maybe that gives the committee enough ammo to say, here's the Oklahoma team we've been waiting on. And if we're going week by week, well, here's a good win. And if Penn State beats Michigan, I mean, that line is similar to South Carolina, Missouri. It's one here or there, one whichever way you want to go, bouncing around. So if Penn State beats Michigan, okay. I could see Oklahoma jumping up there, but then again, that's going to be more questions of, well, how come you're going to move them now when you haven't been moving them? And what about Cincinnati? I mean, I know we got to go. We got to get Frank Martin here, but Darren, if Oklahoma wins, if they beat Baylor, all right, they're 10-0. If Michigan or Michigan State lose, they have 2 losses. You can't even really explain that anymore. It's okay. Oklahoma's going to have to be ahead of whoever that is. Undefeated at 10-0 versus 8-2. There is one 2-loss team out there that I'm telling you, there is a path for A&M to be knocking on this door going, don't shut us out again like you did last year. I mean, there is a path and they're playing good enough to get to that conversation. If Alabama loses, probably to Auburn at the end of the season, which the way Bama's looked, it's possible. So I don't know, man. There's so much football to be played. It's fun to have the conversations. Yep.
And we're going to have more of that coming up in an hour or two. But first, a timeout. When we return, Frank Martin, head basketball coach of the Gamecocks, pops in right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road. You know what happens when you sell record numbers of new vehicles? That's right, we take in record numbers of local trades. Despite what the news is saying, quality pre-owned vehicles really aren't that hard to find. You just need to know where to look. Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate and on the web at stokesvw.com. We've got over 1,200 pre-owned cars, trucks, SUVs, and all at a fraction of the price when new. Every vehicle has been inspected and reconditioned, many with the balance of factory warranty. Best of all, at Stokes Volkswagen, you don't need the perfect credit to get approved for a quality pre-owned vehicle. And we'll take any trade in any condition, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. Don't forget, we'll buy your car even if you don't buy a car from us. You're going to love our pre-owned selection, I guarantee it. So come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or stokesvw.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Negative trade equity financed a new loan, subject to lender approval.
People don't like to get stuck in traffic, stuck in the mud, stuck at work. And 2 others you probably don't think much about, stuck with a big medical bill or stuck with a healthcare program that doesn't fit who you are. Experience true medical freedom with Share Healthcare. More affordable, more options, user-friendly, and biblically sound. You can join right now. Explore a new way to show you care with Share Healthcare. Join us today at sharehealthcare.com. sharehealthcare.com.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor, Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
You hear me talk about Dog and Duck all the time, and there's no other place I'm going to watch my college and NFL than the Dog and Duck. They have 3 locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road. They have specials all football season long, like $12 pitchers of their own D2 brew, $5 pints of Sierra Nevada, weekly pick'em sheets with prizes, and the best wings in town, bar none. For all your football, college, and NFL, the Dog and Duck, Clements Ferry Road, Bell Hall, and Park West.
Motley Rice LLC is a law firm with international reach, but it hasn't lost its Carolina roots. The Motley Rice team fights every day for people harmed by products including asbestos and talc exposure, medical drugs and devices, and also catastrophic injuries and auto recalls, including dangerous Takata airbags. Motley Rice is headquartered in Mount Pleasant at 28 Bridgeside Boulevard. Visit motleyrice.com. Thank you, Motley Rice, for supporting the JB and Goldwater Show and the Big Gamecock Preview Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it is. Even the other stations are tuned in too.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Show very proudly presented by Motley Rice. Causes not just cases, motleyrice.com. Remember, as Joe Rice and his team always say, we hadn't forgotten our local roots, never will. motleyrice.com, headquartered right here in the Low Country on Charleston Harbor. He's probably been on Charleston Harbor, but he wasn't last night. He was in Colonial Life Arena because he's the head coach of the South Carolina Gamecock basketball program, and now 1-0 here in 21-22. It is Frank Martin, kind enough to pop in with us on JB and Goldwater here on a gorgeous Wednesday afternoon. Coach, what's up, man?
Man, I'm doing great. And after listening to you describe where you guys are at, I'm starting to get older. I wouldn't mind being on Joe Rice's yacht on the Charleston Harbor right now, to be honest with you now.
Well, but it's a little different for you these days, right? You got to load up with the sunscreen with no hair up top.
Holy cow, who you telling? I went through that for the first time this summer because, last year with COVID and all that, I never got out. But this summer, the first time I went out, I was down in Miami, and wife and I went to the beach. I was like 10 minutes in. I'm like, why's my head hurt? She goes, because you got no hair. And put something on it. It's hey, by the way, I think you guys should contract me to negotiate with Joe to get you guys to do your show on his yacht in the harbor. How about that one?
Dude, whenever but you have to come. We'll have to make it in the spring. Well, obviously when it's nicer outside, so you can come down and guest host it. Would you do that?
I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll go back to my roots. I'll be your guys' bouncer. I'll stand on there and make sure nobody gets
that'll be necessary. We need protection.
Yeah. I was going the opposite direction, Frank. You'd have some light. You'd have light work that day, brother. They're not crawling to find us. That's for sure. But no, we'll do that. I'm in. I'm totally in. Once the season's over, so we'll look towards April. Because you will be playing into April, Coach, and then after that, we can all figure this thing out. By the way, do you remember, Frank? Do you remember? And Darren, you'll have to. I'm probably a little off on the years here, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. But do you remember when they used to play those games on the Yorktown to start the season? You remember that, Frank?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We actually were in negotiations to. I want to say it was to play Georgetown. And then that's the year that, because of weather, I don't know if you guys remember, the year before they had to cancel the game, slipping and sliding and all that stuff, and I don't think they've done it since.
Yep.
Yeah, it was they had a major moisture problem out there, which salt water, you're playing on it. I don't know. I probably could have anticipated that, but it was in the country. I don't know. Well,
correct. Yep.
You got some neutral site games coming up yourself. We'll run into those in just a minute. I did mention hair, by the way, before I forget this. I've been meaning to ask you this before we actually talk about hair than this one. There's some dudes out there with some wild dudes, man.
That's why I had to give up mine. I traded it off to have guys that got interesting hair, and that's Devin Carter. That's been kind of his signature, his since he was a young kid playing, and it's I don't know. I used to work for actually. Guy that's a dear friend of mine, Ron Everhard, who's the assistant at West Virginia now, and he made everyone cut their hair a certain way, and we all supported it and we understood, and everybody was fine with it. I kind of, what I tell the guys is like, just make sure you're neat, don't be looking like you're playing at some rec league somewhere where you're representing a university. So let's just make sure you're neat. And sometimes I got to have deeper conversations with guys, but I'm into letting them express who they want to be to a certain degree, I guess.
Well, last night they expressed that they wanted to win, and they did 78-60 to open the season here in 2021 over USC Upstate, of course, where your son Brandon played prior to this season. That was neat to see him get in the game last night against his former squad. How do you feel today? I know you said after the game last night, quote, I'm really enjoying these guys. How do you feel today, and why do you say that?
Yeah, they've got a great spirit. They come in every day with a desire to compete, a thirst to understand what we do better. Which then allows me to coach. And as a coach, you're always doing one of two things. You're either helping players get better or you're fighting players so they accept getting better. And when you're fighting players for them to accept getting better, that means that they're not buying into your system. You're a human being. You get exhausted. You don't want to fight your own. You're trying to fight the others, not your own. And but these guys don't bring that approach. They actually they bring in a pretty nice, nice, not the right word, a pretty just an aggressive demeanor to wanting to get better within our structure. And that as a coach, any coach that doesn't enjoy that is just not being honest. So I'm having a great time coaching these guys. I enjoy planning practice. I enjoy being in practice. Doesn't mean that it's all hugs and kisses now. Don't misunderstand me. But at the same time, there's an enthusiasm for the next play because of how much they care. And after last night, I was really happy. I thought we competed. I thought we didn't play great, but we didn't play bad either. I thought we played hard, but Upstate did some things. They played differently than us. So we had to adjust during the game, playing against a system that's different than what we do. And I thought our guys did a pretty good job of that. And the one thing that sometimes teams run like offense, but they jump up and make shots. And then you score a lot of points and everyone says, wow, they're really good offensively. Well, you were good at shot making that night. Yesterday, we didn't make perimeter shots, but I can tell you what really, really kind of got me excited is that we didn't settle. We attacked the paint and we scored, I think, 42 points in the paint. And that's something that we struggled with the last couple of years.
So Frank, correct me if I'm wrong here. Did I count 9 guys last night playing basketball for the first time in a Gamecock uniform? Is that correct?
I believe that's the correct number. It's there's times that there were times we had 5 freshmen on the court. We had Josh Gray, we had Javon Benson, or Taquan Woodley. We had Devin Carter. We had Jacoby Wright, or 4 freshmen. I don't think we ever played 5 at a time. But we got some older guys, but we're also got some really young guys. So it's but we do, I believe it was 9 first-year players.
So, like, what describe that process to you as a coach, because you've had to figure out a way to get all these new dudes in here over the last few months, get them to understand each other, to know each other, to grow with each other, and actually, play pretty good basketball all at the same time. And now you throw them out there for the first time in it. I know you already played an exhibition game, but you throw them out there for the first time this season. This is the first real eyes you get on them. Like, okay, it matters today. Go get it done. The process that led up to the game last night. How do you kind of describe everything that you've been through through the last few months with all of them?
Yeah, I mean, on a normal year, as a coach, I'd be worried, but there's 2,000 Division I transfers. So the majority of us are going through this right now of trying to adapt new players to us and us to new players. That's an average of 2,000 transfers is an average of 5.5 scholarship players per team that transferred. So it's just something that we're all dealing with right now, and it's our jobs to adapt and lead and help these guys go through that. With what I try to tell our team this year is my biggest strength in life is that I'm blatantly honest, and sometimes my honesty is also my difficulty, because I can't. I struggle with not being honest with people. And not being honest doesn't mean lying. Sometimes we choose to withhold the truth. It doesn't mean that we lie. I tell people what I think all the time, and or what I believe to be the truth. And these players have actually embraced that. They really, really enjoy the truth. And so my thing with them is patience. Work, listen, patience. And let's get better. And that's what we've done. We had an inter squad scrimmage a month ago. It was a layup drill. Hell, we might as well just done layup lines rather than scrimmage. That's what it was. And then we scrimmaged Wake Forest, and we were better. Not very good, but we were better. And then we played the exhibition against Benedict, better. And then yesterday I thought we were pretty good. So, and we still didn't play well, but I thought we were pretty good. So it's been fun from that perspective.
Frank Martin, head coach of the Gamecocks. So Taquan Woodley's the first kid off the bench last night. What did he do to earn that?
Yeah, he's been real good. I mean, he's really talented. Really understands what we do. Defensively is where, they picked on him. They had a senior power forward. And as soon as I put him in, they went right at him, and that's what good coaches do. That's Dave Dickerson knows what he's doing, and that's what good coaches do. And they picked on him a little bit, but he really understands what we do. Now, what has he done? Going into the exhibition game, our team got hit with like a battle of the strep throat. Like, it was unbelievable. We had 3 or 4 guys go down with strep throat over a 10-day period. And so missed practice time, and freshmen need practice. He's a prideful kid. And when he played in the exhibition game, he had not practiced leading into the exhibition game. I probably shouldn't have put him in the game, but I just didn't want to have him just sitting there. And after the game, he was furious because he's really smart and has tremendous pride. He came back. He had 2 tremendous practices. And so I threw him out there, and down A.J. Wilson, it kind of moves everybody up a seat, for lack of better words. So he got his opportunity, and I didn't think he was bad defensively. They just kind of made him guard, and he had a couple mistakes that hurt us. But offensively and rebounding wise, he's really good.
Yeah. So is that Gray kid. Frank, he's 7 feet. He looks every centimeter of it. And he's 250, 260 pounds. I mean, when you look at this young man transferred from LSU, for those that maybe don't know, what excites you about his future? How how do you put into words what you think he could be as a basketball player? Because he's incredibly athletic for somebody of his size.
Just how raw he is. I saw it in high school. I loved him in high school. I tried as hard as I could. Chuck Martin and I worked really hard at recruiting Josh out of high school. And, you know, I didn't know him great back then. He's very reserved. When you first meet him, he doesn't really allow you in real easy. So I couldn't even recruit him in high school. I had no idea how intelligent he is, how introspective he is. And, but he's so raw. I mean, he still doesn't realize how talented he is. He's starting to understand it. He's starting to feel good about the work that he's putting in. And he's seen the progress he makes. And I think that, I mean, I told him all the time, I said, he's got the world in the palm of his hand if he just stays humble and continues to work to grow. I think he's extremely talented, and no one's ever put responsibility on his plate from a basketball standpoint. You know, he was just a big guy that was told, like, yo, run and rebound. And we put responsibility on our players' plates. We make them do things, and we put it on them and expect them, hold them accountable to doing the things that they're talented enough to do. And he's actually enjoying it, and his teammates hold him accountable. Eric Stevenson, James Reese, Jermaine, those guys are on him because they see how good he can be, and I think he's embracing it and not running away from it.
To that point, just want to interrupt there, just because you talked about the transfers, both of you did a minute ago, and about 5 of them per roster. And Coach, your team has been throughout not just the South Carolina tenure, but your career, the defensive tenacity there. When you talk about the transfers and you talk about newcomers and freshmen on the team, how different is it to get a transfer, a guy like Josiah Gray, or maybe one with a little bit more experience? How different is it to get them ready to play in your system compared to, say, a freshman out of high school ready to play in your system?
That's actually an interesting question, because what happens is guys that have played at other universities, they have different concepts that have been ingrained in them on how to defend. And I'm not saying one's right, one's wrong. We're just all different. There's different ways of doing things. And when they get here, the transfers is getting them to just break away from some of the habits that they created in the other structure that they used to play in. The freshmen come in brand new. Like, you can train their minds to what you're trying to get them to do. However, the freshmen don't understand the sense of urgency and the speed and the competitiveness of every play. And they have to adapt to that. While those transfers, Eric Stevenson, James Reese, AJ Wilson, those guys that are older, they comprehend that. So you're teaching 2 different things to 2 different guys. With one, you're trying to break the tendencies that they were taught at the previous place. With the other guys, you're trying to teach the sense of urgency, the attention to detail that it takes to succeed here as a team. But we've got like, our freshmen are really good that way. The sense of urgency is really good, and our transfers have been phenomenal. I couldn't be any happier with the guys that our staff went out and identified and brought here for us to coach this year.
Coach, I know we don't have much time left with you because you got to get prepared for a tournament this weekend up there in beautiful Asheville. What a time of the year to go. You mentioned the Stevenson kid. Now, he's played at 2 previous programs. He was at Wichita, and then he was at Washington. And I found out a little about his background because you'll like this, Coach. I do pay attention to you. You know, I was watching and listening to you and Bill Gunter go back and forth about this on the game a couple of weeks ago. So I got his story, so we don't have to go through all that. But watching him play last night, I'm not Frank. I'm 5'9" almost, maybe. I'm now overweight. Not that overweight, but enough to be. I was never anything that was mistaken for a basketball player. But it did hit me last night that you want this dude to keep shooting. And it looks like he's going to. Is there a shot? Is there a spot on the floor that he's not comfortable shooting from? Because it didn't appear that way.
No, he works at it. Guys that don't work at it, I don't want to hear anything about, I'm open, I'm going to shoot it. If you don't work at it, you're shooting only if it's the very end of the shot clock. If not, don't shoot it. He works at it. He works at it religiously. He's in the morning. He's in at night. He is. Him and James Reese are passionate about working on their ability to shoot. So those guys have earned, with the work they put in and their commitment to understanding our structure, they've earned the right that if they're open, they're going to let it go. And that's part of being a good team. So now if you're their teammate, you know that they work at it. You respect them because you know that's what they do. So when they're open and you run your structure, everyone understands that when Eric is going to clean, he's going to let it go. And if he doesn't, I'm going to be mad at him. And so our team now understands that he's going to shoot. So if I'm a rebounder, I can go wedge my way in there to go work for an offensive rebound. And if I'm not a rebounder, I can get to my spots to make sure I'm prepared for transition defense. So, Eric's, Eric, I don't put the cart in front of the horse because this thing's really hard. But I'm very, very confident in his ability to jump up and make shots.
He's fun to watch. A lot of those are going to start falling here pretty soon, and that's going to be really good for South Carolina basketball. Maybe it happens on Friday. You've got a late tip against Princeton up there in Asheville at the casino center, Harris Cherokee Casino. Yeah. We know you're not going to be playing the slots before you run out there and play basketball, Coach. And then you got Western or Minnesota coming up on Sunday. Hopefully it's in the winners game there. And then a little bit down the line, I heard your story about how the Rock Hill tournament, the No Room for Racism game with Florida State came into play. These are great because fans can go. Coach, is this something that you think maybe going to be a trend moving forward? We got the tournament down here in Charleston. You got the tournament up in Myrtle Beach. There's a lot of good basketball to be played in November, neutral sites, but close to Columbia, so a bunch of Gamecocks can show up.
Absolutely. It's the two events that we're in this year, the one in Rock Hill and the one in Nashville. The proximity to our state, obviously one of them is in the state. And the ability for fans and families to be able to just get in a car and go watch our team play is a big part of those things. And it's when you think about, Rock Hill has grown so much in my 10 years in the state, and then Charleston, one of the great cities in the world, Myrtle Beach, one of the great tourist destinations in our country. We're showcasing our state to so many people that come in for these tournaments, the televisions, the networks that come in to put these tournaments on TV, and then for our in-state folks to enjoy great basketball in our state. It's I think it's an awesome thing that we can do all those things.
Coach, before I let you run, if you get mad at me, please don't tell Emily to not schedule us again. But can I ask you a question that kind of relates to football?
Are you kidding me? I can't stand talking basketball. Football.
Well, it's more of a question about Coach Beamer. I mean, you've been a head coach for a long time now. You're a dude. You've been around the block. This is Shane's first year. What do you remember about your first year as a head coach, and what is he going through and trying to figure out who he is and who he wants to be as the leader of a football program?
Yeah, it's my first year. I had 9, just like this year, 9 first-year players. I had 7 freshmen, a JUCO transfer, and a young man that was redshirting sitting out. And 10 games into conference play in the Big 12, we were 8-2 in first place with 6 to play. And I'm sitting there saying, I think I got this figured out. And we went on a 4-game losing streak. And after those 4 games, I thought that the end of the world was like 10 minutes away. And then we regrouped and figured out a way to win our last 2. and snuck into the NCAA tournament and got a win and in the NCAA tournament. And that first year is a blur. That first year there and my first year here, those 2 seasons are blurs. It's you look back and you're like, wow, because it's you have a lot of people use the word culture in today's day and age. Yep. There is no like winning. I don't believe that there's a formula for a winning culture. I think culture is all what we fight to create, and we're all different. Whatever is good culture for Shane doesn't necessarily mean it's good culture for me, and whatever is good for me doesn't mean it's good for Coach whoever. We're all different. Now, Shane is fighting to spread who he is amongst a locker room of 100 people, 100 players, and then numerous assistants that are working him for the first time. That was my biggest challenge when I look back, and it was my greatest gift is getting all my staff at the time at K-State to understand what I teach and what I push for and the do's and don'ts for my culture. But that whole staff were guys that Hugs brought us together over there, Bob Huggins. Mm-hmm. And so they all stayed with me. And that unity that we had allowed that transition to take place a little smoother. But that's the biggest challenge in that first year, man. That's what makes that first year difficult, is that everyone's trying to understand each other and everyone's trying to figure out what the head coach wants, whether it's an assistant, an analyst, or your backup punter. It doesn't matter. It's everyone's trying to figure out what is it that the head coach wants to see if I'm willing to jump on board and help him. And as a head coach, you're trying to convince everyone in that room just buy into what I'm telling you, and together we can make this special. And that's not as easy as it is to talk about. And it's sometimes it creates a real difficult journey.
It's so fascinating to hear it from guys like you I don't think there's anything you haven't been through. It was nice to see you on the sidelines kind of chewing out some officials last night. I'm not sure what you said to them, but I like that. I think when Frank's in the ear of somebody over there, I think everybody feels like, all right, things are normal.
Last year was hard, man. Last year was really hard. Last year was personally, it was a challenge for me the whole year. And then professionally it was complicated, and I'm at peace right now. My health is good. These players, when I started recruiting, I shouldn't say my staff had been recruiting them, and when I engaged on recruiting some of these guys, their enthusiasm for me, their enthusiasm for Carolina got me excited about coaching, and then being around this team, the spring, the summer, my health being good, I'm at peace, man, and I'm as excited right now as I've ever been to be a basketball coach.
Good.
Well, I have a professional job to do, but behind the scenes, I think most folks know out there, we are big time Gamecocks in our family, and we're so proud to have you on the sidelines, Coach. It means a lot. Glad you're here, and we certainly really appreciate the time that you have taken to spend with us today. I know we took you away from watching some film, but we'll let you get back to it. And we'll try to do this again sooner than later. I think when did we talk to him last, Darren? Last summer?
I think when we got the jersey from JR. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, Frank, that's way too long. We got to figure this out.
Well, I can tell you where you guys can help me like right away. If you can call me Friday about 9:15 at night.
Okay.
I came at 9:30 at night. I just told you I feel great and I'm excited, but I'm old, man. If I'm not forced to watch film, I'm head bobbing at 9 o'clock at night. So you guys can call me, wake me up on Friday, so I'm ready to go for the game.
Frank, don't do that. Don't sleep on Princeton now. They can play, right?
Particularly them.
They can play.
No, they're good. They returned most of their team from 2 years ago. No one in the Ivy League played last year. Same coach, and They're physical as heck, and they got a great system, and they're led by seniors. So those guys are comfortable in who they are and how they play, and it's a great opportunity for our basketball team.
This is a really good tournament. Princeton, Western Kentucky, Minnesota, and South Carolina. Coach, it's been a pleasure. Honestly, thank you so much. Go win that dang thing this weekend and get rolling right along here. This is going to be a fun month of November and an even better month of December and into the SEC for you. Thank you, buddy. We really appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys, man. Thank you.
See ya.
Always. There you go. Frank Martin, head basketball coach of the South Carolina Gamecocks. Win last night, 78-60 over USC upstate. And up next, Friday evening, as long as Frank's awake, they'll tip off at 9:30 against Princeton up at the Harris Cherokee Casino Center in Asheville. And then if they are able to win that, it'll be a 7:30 tip Sunday evening against either Western Kentucky or Minnesota. And if they don't, they'll play at 5 o'clock on Sunday afternoon up there in the Asheville Championship. Friday night game televised nationally on ESPN News. Sunday's game will either be on ESPN2 or ESPNU. Waiting on network designation there. All right, it is time for a timeout. Great stuff with Coach. Before we get, Darren, Frank is a guy that I like to actually talk to. It's not just the ins and outs of basketball and stuff like that. You actually like to talk to him.
Yeah, he's easy to root for. He's easy to root for, and it's good to hear him healthy. It's good to hear him. Yeah. I mean, that to be as blunt and simple as it gets, right? It's good to hear him and see him as him, and he's an easy guy to root for. Gamecocks are lucky people to root for because they're good people.
Yeah, good people. Frank's right there at the top of that totem pole, and we were glad we could have him today. Another one who's pretty good as well is J.C. Shurburtt. He's waiting in the wings, and when we return for hour 2, he'll join us, the owner of the Big Spur, up next on the JB and Goldwater Show, very proudly presented by Motley Rice. Right here in our backyard is Motley Rice LLC, a law firm that hasn't lost its Carolina roots. The Motley Rice team fights every day for South Carolinians who were injured while traveling by plane or bus, harmed by medical drugs and devices, or burdened by dangerous auto recalls, including Takata airbags. Motley Rice is headquartered in Mount Pleasant at 28 Bridgeside Boulevard. We are honored to have Motley Rice as a sponsor for the JB and Goldwater Show and the Big Gamecock Preview Show.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risk their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
People don't like to get stuck in traffic, stuck in the mud, stuck at work, and 2 others you probably don't think much about, stuck with a big medical bill or stuck with a healthcare program that doesn't fit who you are. Experience true medical freedom with Share Healthcare. More affordable, more options, user-friendly, and biblically sound. You can join right now. Explore a new way to show you care with Share Healthcare. Join us today at sharehealthcare.com. sharehealthcare.com.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the Links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Lowcountry. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The Links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf teams. Come see us. We would love to have you. stonoferrygolf.com.
Family vacations, a new car, a new boat, all cost money, but you don't necessarily have to make more to afford any of that if you can save cash that's flying out the window now. iHelp Consulting can help you finally get the kids to Disney World, upgrade the minivan, or drop that new boat in the water next summer. Let Daniel and iHelp Consulting consult with you. No fees, just savings. You pay them a percentage of those savings. Save on essential services, credit card fees, you name it. Let them find it. These folks are incredible. iHelpConsulting.com. How can I help you?
Hi, I'm Chris Half, Public Information Officer at the Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. We're home of the mighty USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, Clamagore, and Vietnam experience. and we're a proud partner of the JB and Goldwater Show. We invite you and your family to come see us and enjoy a day on Charleston Harbor. Visit patriotspoint.org for more information. And now, it is my honor to present the national anthem.
Live, loud, and online.
Final hour here on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome back. The JB and Goldwater Show, very proudly presented by Motley Rice and driven by Stokes Volkswagen, stokesvw.com, motleyrice.com. Make sure you've downloaded our app, JB and Goldwater app. It's free. And you can always head to jbandgoldwatershow.com as well. Share healthcare chat lines. You can chime in there and be a part of our conversation. Do it. Adam, Jamie, thank y'all very much. Appreciate that. It was great to speak with Coach Martin, or Frank, as he wants you to call him, in that last segment. Gamecocks off to a good start with a win last night over USC Upstate. The final hour today is dedicated to J.C. Shurburtt, who owns the BigSpur.com. Generally jumps in around 12:30 on Wednesday afternoons, but he was kind enough to bump himself back a few minutes so we could get Frank in here. And we've got him now. JC, Gamecocks, for the first time in a long time, we feel pretty good in the middle of the work week headed towards another football weekend. What's up, man?
Yeah, heck of a win Saturday night. I'd be lying if I said I expected it to happen. You get 8 games in and you're kind of like, well, what could they possibly fix? But, that they sort of did some things that we've been talking about here on this show, ran more power with gap schemes, stuff like that. I think the offensive linemen that are at South Carolina right now, are there a lot of big guys, and I think they can play that game. You know what I'm saying? They've done it before. We've seen it against Georgia or Florida or, Ole Miss, whoever. You've seen that this group line up, run the ball out of a power formation. And it's not that they have not been running gap scheme plays this year, because they have, and they haven't looked good, is that they ran more. And they scaled back some of the assignments. I think they talked about individuals doing their job. And I said this on the podcast today, Inside the Gamecocks, and I've said this before. Football is an allegory of life. I got that from my friend Derek Moore, right? Well, in life, sometimes you have two things. You got to be personally accountable, and then you have to be accountable to the group. And if you're not taking that individual accountability, which is a lost art in our society, we go through that 2020 summer, and nobody ever mentioned the term personal responsibility the whole time with COVID or whatever else was going on, right? So it's a lost art in today's society.
Yeah.
Not to get political, but it is. And that's the one thing that just killed me about that whole situation. No, who's personally responsible? Because then that personal responsibility you take on impacts the group and impacts your accountability to the group. And in football, when you compare it to life, there's no better position to teach you that than the offensive line, because 1 out of the 5 doesn't handle their job and the thing messes up. And I'm not talking about what I said way back when, where maybe you should simplify so one little thing doesn't mess it up, because that was more nuanced. I'm talking like, okay, so everybody blocks fine, but the left guard you're running a play right up the left guard's butt, and he just doesn't know what to do or falls down or misses his assignments, didn't hear the call, whatever, or you get your quarterback killed, whatever, In listening to Marshawn Lloyd during the media availability yesterday, he talked about the players-only meeting and how they talked about that. Now, this is a little bit of Nick Saban. Everybody talks about the process and all that. The process is not the all-encompassing Alabama football program. Here's what the process is. Focus on the task at hand and doing your best. Don't think about the next play. That's a distraction. Don't think about what just happened. That's a distraction. Focus on your job in the moment, which is also a good way to live. And so they talked about that. And, that's psychologically, that has worked for a lot of football teams. And that's the process. That's what people talk about when they talk about the process. I think the definition's gone haywire these days, and people just think, well, it's how Alabama runs its program. It's not. It's a psychological philosophy, and that's what they talked about the players-only meeting. I think the coaching staff stressed that all week, and lo and behold, the offensive line, while they didn't play perfect, I'd probably rate it about a B minus, B plus, something like that. Probably about a B, good solid B. It showed you that, hey, the offensive line can be fixed. I mean, everybody the whole year tried to make the argument, these guys, they're not talented and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, look, if they're not talented, you're in some trouble because Wolford left 19 guys. I mean, so if none of these guys can play, and then you're looking 2 or 3 years down. But I never bought that. It was a line of crap. It was an excuse. These guys can play. Are they good at some things, better at some things than others, like every player? Yes. And it was up to the coaches to put them in position to be successful, and they did. Kevin Harris ran hard. He looked like the old Kevin Harris. Really fired up about Marshawn Lloyd and his big 40-yard run. And then what could you say about Zaquandre White? I mean, Tony Morrell on my website, thebigspur.com, mentioned in his post-game thoughts, he was like, he runs every run like it's his last. And man, oh man, the passion he brings, 111 yards, the 54-yard run early, I thought really set the tone. I call it an adventure run because it's kind of an adventure. He went to the outside, go up here, and maybe I'll go over here, and and there we go. 54 yards later. And then, Jason Brown, we sat here and talked about it, that I felt like they had to go with him. It wasn't necessarily because of anything other than the skill set he brings to the table. And lo and behold, not patting myself on the back about it because I'm wrong about a lot of things, but I said he keeps his eyes downfield. He can escape pressure. And he doesn't take off running. He doesn't panic and get sacked. He stays cool. He keeps his eyes downfield. And then you have those scramble plays, those off-schedule plays. And he made 2 huge ones. The 50-yarder to Van early, and then the touchdown pass to Van when Van was wide open. That's kind of gone viral this week. And that's what that kind of guy with that kind of skill set can get you guys, is that, he's not a sitting duck like Nolan, and he's a little bit more comfortable in the pocket than Doty, who would take off running pretty quickly and was, you kind of look at Luke play right now, he's sort of herky-jerky. Jason Brown is very smooth operator in the pocket. Now, and look, credit to the O-line and all that. Florida's a team that, hey, first-time starter, division FCS transfer, first-time starter, Grantham going into that game probably had the game plan to heat him up, and it didn't happen very often. So the pass blocking still leaves a lot to be desired. I would never call pass blocking the strength of this group based on last year and this year, but they held up pretty well. And they made good decisions, and the ability to run the football, guys, means everything. And everybody talks these days like it's Xbox or like it's the Big 12. Like it's quarterbacks, everything, long touchdown passes. You can't win if you can't. And it still comes down to this: who can run the ball and who could stop the run. And then I'd be remiss. We talked more about the offense this week because it was kind of a renaissance, But the other renaissance nobody's talking about, which is equally as impressive, is the fact that Carolina held Florida to 82 rushing yards.
Yeah.
In the game. And Clayton White and his group, they've had some tough games against the run this year. They're going to have to stop the run this weekend. But that run game at Florida, That's difficult because they'll run the quarterback. Nobody else really kind of runs the quarterback at you like they do, the power with the quarterback, that kind of thing. And they had a great game plan, walk in the safety into the box. Zach Pickens played outstanding. Jabari Ellis. Jordan Birch was back there wreaking havoc. Glad to see him get his first sack. Glad to see Cam Smith make some plays. The Gamecocks, I know they gave up some early passes, and I think against Florida when Emory Jones is playing, I think you live with that. If it was Anthony Richardson, you'd probably be a little worried. But Anthony, of course, was dancing in the hotel and hurt his knee. So weird. But, that's what Carolina did. So now the season changed. I mean, a contact after the game texted me, said this changes everything. And it does. Because now you've got a beatable Missouri team. South Carolina is now a 1-point favorite on the road. I'll remind everybody, Tennessee was also a 1-point favorite against the Tigers in Como. And we saw what happened there. Against the team that really, they don't have a win like South Carolina this year. They don't have any kind of like super duper wins. They've beaten Central Michigan. They've beaten Vanderbilt. They've beaten North Texas. And they've beaten Southeast Missouri State. And they've given up a freaking ton of rushing yards every single time. So it's a big opportunity. I know Eli Drinkett sort of gets under people's skin because he's won in Columbia twice and talked crap afterward. But I think it's a golden opportunity for South Carolina to go out and say, all right, this was not a fluke. This was not because Florida quit. We're a team that did not play well its first 8 games on offense, but we're an emerging football team. And that sets up, if you win it this weekend, pressure's off for a bowl. And I don't know that this team I haven't, I guess the Kentucky game would have been a pressure situation. I haven't seen a lot of pressure. I mean, pressure situations have come at the end of these with these teams like Troy and Vandy where you got to go win, and they've responded well. But, you come back home with a bowl wrapped up, and Auburn's coming to town. They're good, not great. Clemson's coming to town. They're good and improving, but not great. There's a chance all of a sudden to go win 8 games, 9 games, get to a good bowl. Dare I say the Outback or Gate or something like that. And Beamer pointed this out, and he's right. Nobody really remembers how you started the season. They remember what happens in November. As Gamecocks, everybody sort of remembers the Novembers of the past when, the Orange Crush and all that back in the day. And, I guess Missouri's kind of wedged into the Orange Crush this year, or, take Tennessee out, but Auburn's orange a little bit. But, they play 3 Tigers right in a row. But, so you look at it, it's like, this really has a chance. And we've said all year, JB, why we were so mad about the offense was it's ruining a chance for Shane Beamer to have a better than expected first season.
Yeah.
And now that hopefully they've gotten that fixed, the offense is better. Defense is pretty good. Special there's really a chance. And I'll say one more thing about Marcus Satterfield, because I know this is kind of a monologue and you got some questions, and I'll be brief on my answers. More brief.
I don't have any questions for you.
All right, that's fine. I'll just keep talking. No, people always ask me, does this matter? Does this save his job? The answer to that, I mean, what's my opinion? And I'll say I don't know. It depends on what happens towards the end. The next 3 games, really, quite frankly. But I'll say this: if you really look at it, Marcus Satterfield is like a pizza chef. Okay. And
Yeah.
I'll put this together. Satterfield's got like the best toppings. He's got the fresh mozzarella. He's got the gourmet sausage. He's got the gourmet pepperoni. It's like a farmer's market in the kitchen. He's chopping up peppers and onions and all the stuff you put on your pizza. It's great. Applewood smoked bacon, fresh Wisconsin cheese, the mozzarella just kicks. But his dough sucks and the sauce distribution is off. All right? So that's the problem. You're still not going to sell a lot of pizza that way. People are like, I'll just call Pizza Hut, with that deep fried dough ball they got, and their sauce distribution isn't off. It's a science. All right. So what's easier to fix? All right. Think about this. Maybe I'm wrong, but I would think that if you go cheap on the toppings and you get basically the government cheese to put on the top of it, and your pepperoni sucks, and sausage doesn't even just look like a little ball of something. You don't even know what the meat is. You use bacon bits. Your vegetables are kind of soggy and rubbery. You can fix the dough and the sauce distribution all you want, but your pizza's gonna suck. All right. Now, so the toppings and all that you've got that, and the metaphor there is, I think when you kind of look at it, I don't mind throwing a flea flicker on first down, right? I don't mind doing the reverse passes. I don't mind the reverses to Josh Vann. I don't mind the trick plays. I did mind it inside the 3, and I'll always mind it inside the 3 at Tennessee when you're running the ball up their butt, right? Because I think it's totally overthinking. But I don't necessarily mind sometimes. I still think he does it too much, throwing touchdown passes in the red zone. I don't mind any of that. I think actually when you think about the aggressive mindset and creative play calling and offenses, all that stuff's fine. The play designs are good. But he didn't have good dough and he didn't have good sauce distribution, right? But that's easier to fix than rearranging your toppings and screwing your business plan. And I think the dough and the sauce kind of have to do with like the run game, the assignments, cleaning up the basics, okay? And that's where Marcus Satterfield, I think, struggled as a coordinator, is that there were no basics. There was all these bells and whistles, but no basics. And so hopefully the dough and the sauce are fixed. I think we need another game to kind of realize that, because you got to do that. So if you get the dough and the sauce fixed, you get the basics fixed, then I think when you hear him talk, where he's like, we got to do something different for every opponent we want, then it makes more sense. Because you still got your base. You still got South Carolina, they're going to run power, they're going to run duo, they're going to run gap scheme, they'll hit you with a zone occasionally, they're going to throw it to the tight end. But what else are they going to do? And then that's the stuff that in college football, along helps you. In the pros, you can put in a whole new playbook every week. You got time. You can have 150 plays and divide them up, say this works against the Bills, and then we're going to do this against the Giants, and we're going to, it's kind of everybody's talent is kind of a tricky thing. In college football, the best offenses do like 2 things really, really elite and well, and it's hard as hell to stop. And then they have creativity on top of that. So if you're talking about Marcus Satterfield, that to me is the light at the end of the tunnel. If his dough and sauce distribution is fixed, then hell, he's got some good toppings.
I don't know what to say. Well,
I mean, if there was a way to take "can you fly the plane" analogy and turn it into something else, I mean, you couldn't have done it better than that.
Yeah, that's right. The dough spinner. Yeah.
I'll say this. I used to, like, one time in college, I shaved and I ended up with like half a mustache, and I went to class anyway because I didn't care. And they said I looked like the Tony's Pizza guy on the box, Tony, the Tony's Pizza, So I'm somewhat of a dough spinner. I used to work in pizza delivery and chop the pepper. My job was to chop the peppers and onions, so that analogy was near and dear to my heart.
Well, that was awesome. Thank you for doing that. And that concludes today's JC and himself show. We'll be back tomorrow around noon, we think. With pizza. I hear you. I do hear you. And I want to kind of, I'm going to do this kind of in an awkward way, but let me bring some of our comments, a couple of comments from the Share Healthcare chat lines into this conversation as part of that. One is from Jim and Crystal. And the question was, when was the last time you guys have seen a team just all of a sudden change like Carolina did Saturday? I'm not saying that they have. So to follow up, they're not saying that they have. I agree. We per what Shane said yesterday, they need to go out and prove that that this is maybe now a different football team than it was. As far as when is the last time I've seen it change like that? Never, because I don't. The only example I could give, which isn't a similar example at all, because this offense was literally so incompetent, was back in 2006. South Carolina had really struggled on offense under Coach Spurrier in his second year. They were up and they were down and they were up and they were down, and they were in the middle of a 3-game losing streak. And then they made some changes. That was the year Savell Newton had been brought in to play some quarterback as well. And they go out and score like JC, I can't even remember, with the 30-something, 50-something, and 30-something points to finish the year. They beat Clemson. All of a sudden, that offense, which hadn't done that all year under Spurrier, it started clicking, and they got rolling. So that's the only really example I have there. But to your point about the pizza and the thin crust and the deep dish and all those black olives and whatever you were saying, I'm just kidding.
By the way, pizza crust is on our shopping list today, so that I can make pizza at the house.
In your
no, I don't air fry it. I might grill it though. I'm into grilling, but
I've smoked a pizza. It's pretty good.
Oh yeah,
you can burn the crust though. To your point though, JC, I think that this week for South Carolina, this is so intriguing for the players and the coaches, because and then the fans separately. Like, this is the first time all year they've actually had hope. And as somebody pointed out to me on Sunday, it's amazing what, quote, hope will do for your program. And you can't, like, we can go back and go through every little thing that happened this weekend. By the way, nobody's talked about it yet, but EJ Jenkins and Josh Vann were on the field the whole time together on Saturday afternoon. Like, there were a lot of things that we've seen. We're like, where'd that go? And it was all back. I mean, it literally all worked. Like, you can't, there's nothing, anybody that finds something to criticize from the weekend, that's ridiculous to me. I mean, there's nothing to criticize here. They beat the crap out of Florida. But I wonder now, even moving forward, they're not going to be perfect in these final 3 games. But now that there's just hope and confidence, like, I wonder how much some of that can overtake some of the other crap that joined along. It's not going to be perfect the rest of the year, JC. They're still going to have problems. We're not necessarily going to see them. They're not going to be blatantly obvious to our eyeballs every time they happen, but they are going to be there. But how much can a changed mentality maybe overcome some of that? And I think this week, this is time. It's time, fans. It's time, football team. Focus on the positive. Forget about anything that's happened. Forget about the fact it took God knows how many games to get all this stuff ironed out. It doesn't matter anymore. What does matter is the next 3 games, and you want to make sure that you can positively impact those.
Yeah, and I'm going to say this until and nobody here on the chat line said it, but you're sure we'll get a tweet from somebody that doesn't like me will say it. I'm not backing off my previous criticism of Marcus Satterfield. I'm not necessarily saying he's even the guy. I'm just saying that what happened Saturday was kind of what they did to fix it. It's kind of like what we've been saying all season. When you look at South Carolina heading into this year, you say, what's the strength of the offense? It's the offensive line and the running backs. And then that just hasn't shown up all year. Even against Eastern Illinois, there were a lot of issues. Eastern Illinois just wasn't very good. Well, it finally showed up. And there was a change at quarterback that helped. There was a change in simplifying some. And people say, well, did they change the blocking scheme? No, they simplified the assignments. In other words, there aren't as many different things that these guys have to do or that could do before the ball snapped, the pre-snap stuff and all that. And then Jason Brown turning what could have been bad plays into good was a total difference. But you have to keep it going. There have been Gamecock teams that have come out of nowhere, maybe not this late, because if you think back to some of those teams that really struggled, guys, they usually were lining up to play top 5 Tennessee, top 5 Florida, and then their arch rivals, Clemson, at the end of the year. And even if they did improve, like the 99 team went to Tennessee, competed, lost 30-7, came back, competed with Florida pretty well, and then almost knocked off a Peach Bowl bound Tiger team, but lost every game. But I'll go back 92 when Tannehill came in. This was earlier.
Someone tweeted that to us, actually.
Gamecocks were 0-5. Tannehill comes in. They beat a top 15 Mississippi State. And they believe that. Now, I'm going to say that, Jason Brown has a lot to do with it. But I'm also going to say that it's not just a quarterback change that's happened. I think it's helpful. So they turned it around. And I'll give you another example, too, and nobody's going to want to think about this. The 2003 Clemson Tigers. If you look at that team, they were kind of preseason, top whatever. Georgia smacks them in the face. Then they get on a little bit of a roll. Then Maryland smacks them. And then NC State beats them. And then they beat North Carolina. Then they go to Wake, and they get slaughtered 45-17. Tommy Bowden's getting fired. This was 2003 before he got fired 4 years later.
Yeah.
And they upset Bobby Bowden in the Bowden Bowl, and then away we go. 63-17 happened. They continued the momentum into the Peach Bowl against 6th-ranked Tennessee. I remember watching that Clemson team.
Yeah.
And it was just a completely different team after they won that big game unexpectedly against FSU. So, in my opinion, there is some press. I'm sure if I looked back, I could find some other teams. And here's the thing. Here's the difference between, some of those Gamecock teams that struggled back in the 90s or maybe even like Will Muschamp's 2016 team, because we know Jake Bentley came in and turned things around. But there were just some teams on the schedule like Florida and Clemson that the Gamecocks just weren't going to compete with, right? They're too good. They have too much talent. That team in 2016 had some young players that ended up being NFL players, but it was in transition. And so many of Will Muschamp's recruits had to come in and play. This group Beamer inherited, if you notice, the guys making the plays were all left. The Vans of the world, the Marshawn Lloyd, Kevin Harris, not Juju McDowell, but he committed to Muschamp. Nick Muse, Jaheim Bell, you name it. There's the offensive line. I mean, there's Varshawn Lee and Wanamaker were Muschamp recruits. So this team's had talent. I mean, this is not the issue. The issues have not been similar to those teams that just didn't have a chance when they ran up against a good opponent. It's been more sort of figuring out the secret sauce to get these guys to go perform. And now that they've done it, they're going to play with a lot more confidence. And, it's possible that a huge, not just a big, but a huge finish could happen.
Yeah, and I want to point out, I saw John and Jamie and a few of you tweeting about that 92 team. Y'all are spot on, because I for whatever reason didn't remember how bad the offense was. I knew it was I remember it being a turnaround, but the offense was brutal. The defense that year was actually pretty good. But I want to turn this though to Sat. Darren, we're gonna hop through the break today, and we'll make it up to everybody tomorrow. I want to turn this to Satterfield, because I think this is important, JC. And I don't know what's going to happen to him or with him at the end of the season. And that goes for every coach on the staff. I mean, I kind of have an FYI for everybody out there. Your favorite coach on this staff might not be here in 2022, whoever your favorite coach is. Clayton White, Pete Limbo, Torian Gray, we never know. And JC, you're in the thick of all this. You talk to so many people. Coaches come and coaches go. And you just don't know how it's going to happen. I think the perfect world right now in everybody's mind is, well, you got to get rid of Greg Atkins and you got to get rid of Marcus Satterfield, and the rest of them, they're all good. I'm almost willing to bet that there's going to be a coach who isn't here for some reason or another next year, that somebody's going to be going, well, why are they leaving? There's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes, man. So we can't.
LSU and Southern Cal are open,
Yeah. I mean, and you don't know what else is going to come open.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you have no idea, and we never know. So I preface my statement with that. That being said, right now we're in this wait and see mode still. I think with the most scrutinized coach on the staff, which is Coach Satterfield. But I personally believe that if you want to criticize him, which, guys, I've been I've been numero uno this year and criticizing him publicly and you. It is also, you have to be fair to the conversation. So don't say things like, I don't care, he still needs to be fired. Well, you're going to feel that way if what you just saw on Saturday is duplicated over the next 3 games and then into a bowl game and it happens again. You want to fire a guy who's all of a sudden figured it out. I don't care if it's Marcus Satterfield, Steve Spurrier, they dig up friggin' Newt Rockne, or they go find some ball boy who's out in the middle of Montana that wants to call plays, and he can figure out an offense. Who cares who it is? Like, sometimes things do change. I think there's still a lot of things that are going to have to get figured out, JC, but at the end of the day, that was probably damn near as perfect as they could possibly be in an SEC game on Saturday. So I think people who have been critical of Marcus now need to make sure that they step back off of that ledge a little bit, and let's see what happens, because based on 4 quarters, he's earned it.
And I'll say this too, you know, everybody around here sort of doesn't remember kind of the sausage making, to use another food analogy, when with Steve Spurrier when he was there, but they do remember Will Muschamp, and I think this is where the head coach being sort of an offensive guy, or CEO type of guy, but leans offense, helps. You know, not that Muschamp didn't know how to fix the offense, but he's a defensive guy, and he concentrated on defense and recruiting, and Muschamp wore a lot of hats. So he couldn't go tell Kurt Roper, look, you need to do this, this, and this. You're not in the NFL anymore, Kurt. Quite frankly, you're only there a year. You know, you need to go back. Why don't you run David Cutcliffe's offense? Because we have 3 NFL receivers and a tight end sitting out here, and you're running it up the middle over and over and over again, okay? Same with Brian McClendon. When Jake goes down and Helinski's playing, you know, McClendon kind of stopped listening to people, and Muschamp, I don't think, went in there and said, hey, you need to let Dan Werner and Bobby Bentley back into the conversation because what you're doing is not working. Not that Muschamp didn't hold his offensive coaches accountable. It's just he's a defensive guy. He's a special teams guy. He's a recruiting. His basic problem at Carolina was he wore too many hats, I think. But Beamer, CEO, you know, he can get in there and help fix it and kind of make directives and say whatever. Number 2 is, I remember under Muschamp, South Carolina had a very well-known defensive analyst who marked up the offense, self-scouted every day. That was an important part of it. And Kurt Roper wouldn't listen, balled it up, threw it in the trash. Okay? This is one of the better defensive coordinators in the SEC the past 20 years.
Yeah.
And that kind of arrogance is going to get you beat. Well, again, CEO, Shane Beamer, so let's self-scout. Defensive staff, obviously, you look at what they did with Florida, it's pretty good, right? Pretty good. And the defensive staff goes through and says, oh, here's what you're doing. Here's what you need to do. This is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. And then the recognition, finally, that this offensive line is better at some things than others, which I think is coaching 101. And you can't take 8 games to make this mistake again. You got to figure out what your kids can do in college. You know, I think finally figuring that out and then challenging them in terms of the accountability and having other players do that. And then top it all off with a kind of a natural leader at quarterback that calms people down, smooth operator, doesn't flinch, that kind of – because Jason Brown doesn't flinch. I never saw once you know, look, he threw some bad passes sometimes. But I never got the sense once either against A&M or, you know, late or against Florida or really any time he's been in the game this year that he panics. If y'all remember correctly, he went in the game at Georgia for one play because I think Doty's helmet came off and he got a lot of pressure, but he chucked it out of bounds like he should. You know, he didn't panic and fumble. He didn't. Now, they did have the fumble against Eastern Illinois, but that was just a boneheaded blocking. That play broke down, but he never panics. He doesn't flinch. And so I think the combination of those things made for a successful Saturday night. We'll see if it continues. Stand by my criticism. No excuse for a lot of the way the 8 games go. No excuse for it taking 8 games. But I also believe as I mentioned about the pizza chef, not everything about what Marcus Satterfield is trying to do at South Carolina is bad. I think there's like I said, there's some good things. You just got to, and instead of like building on top of it, like is the case with most bad offensive coordinators, because they're not creative. They just want to do this, whatever. It's kind of a bottom up deal with him. What was been missing has been the fundamentals, your bread and butter, so to speak. And Carolina going into the season, everybody knew, they're going to line up, hit you with the offensive line, run the football with those backs. And they never really got to a point where they could do that successfully until this past weekend. So, I'm not willing to sit there and say, hey, Satterfield's coming to his own. He's the answer. I'm certainly not willing to not give him a chance, because I think he's earned it for now. And we'll see what happens Saturday.
Yeah, that's my point. It's not like that anybody needs to back off any criticism that they've had. That's earned criticism. But I mean, what you don't want, JC, is some fan watching the TV on Saturday going, if they keep playing this well, then that means that they're probably going to keep this guy. Yeah, who cares?
Good.
Like
you
that,
keep playing well. Good.
That's what you don't want to change offensive coordinators all the time. Like, that's not the goal. Generally, offenses are pretty good when the guy's been around there for a while. Players grow through the system. And I mean, JC, you've said this before, and it's true. Any system in offense at some point in time can be good. I mean, it can be a bad system, but when players have been in it for 3 or 4 years, it's probably actually going to be fairly productive, because everybody just understands it and they know it better than everybody else, and they're going to go out and do what they're supposed to do. So, I mean, like Jamie just said in the Share Healthcare chat lines, and he's right. It's wait and see. As a fan, what you need to pull for is that your football program can sustain the success they had last weekend. Who cares about who's coaching it and who might be or won't be coaching it after the season? I think that's ridiculous to even think like that. I mean, I had somebody say to me this weekend, bad news is if they end up winning all these last few games and this offense plays like this, and Satterfield will be back. I'm like, you wouldn't want him back if what did I? Huh? I mean, you know what I mean? I don't understand things like that. So, that doesn't make sense to me. I'm so, it's not personal. It's not like he killed somebody. No. This guy's constantly stabbing people in the locker room, and we're going to keep it. No.
Stabbed this guy in the face.
Like the coaches, his nose off. The coaches deserve it, like the players. If you play better, you should play more, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you've improved, you've improved.
I mean,
I've seen quarterbacks do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, JC, let's we're getting to the last 20 minutes, and I know when you start talking again, we'll be past 2:00. Let's get to some of the specifics and some of the things that we saw in the ball game this weekend, and some of the players. And I just continue, Darren, I hope you'll back me up here. I've said this from day one. I continue to fall more in love with Zaquandre White. And this kid, JC, I said it on the air. So someone sent me a text, said, "What? It's your favorite player since Corey Boyd?" I said, "Yeah, he is." We've had a lot of great players. I love Marcus and Alshon and Connor and this and the other. I love the way this kid plays. I haven't seen anybody play this hard at that position, I feel like, personally, since Corey Boyd. And you just wonder if with him and Kevin and Marshawn, it literally worked out perfect for them on Saturday, and Juju getting a touchdown. You just wonder if they're all kind of finding that flow now. And JC, if they are, that's going to be dangerous. I don't care if you're Clemson, Auburn, Missouri. I don't care who's up next. Those guys are really good, and we've known that for a while.
Yeah, I mean, those guys were supposed – I mean, you think about what we were talking about this summer. I mean, I thought, look, they're limited at receiver. You got to throw it to the tight ends. I was like, Luke Doty will run the ball and they'll be fine. It's not going to be a big year on offense, but they're real talented in the backfield. And when you've got that many offensive linemen returning that have played well in the past, that's kind of your expectation. So, That's good. I don't want to discount the fact Kevin Harris missed a lot of time, and he was kind of alien. I was ready for Kevin Harris. I was like, honestly, if he's going to be this limited, you may as well shut him down because you're not doing him any favors, and he's eating up carries that maybe somebody else could get. Boy, you proved me wrong Saturday night. He looked like the Kevin Harris we saw last year. Marshawn Lloyd with the big run. I wish he'd have cut it. He almost cut it back to the middle of the field. He saw a guy standing there, though, and, cut back sort of towards the boundary. I think if he'd have cut it to the middle of the field, he outruns that guy to the end zone. But that's kind of Marshawn Lloyd right now, he kind of is feeling his way still, right? And that's why you get some plays that are good, some plays that he kind of – you don't know where he's going. And he also, of all the backs – they've blocked for Marshawn the worst the whole year for whatever reason. I don't think it's personal. He's a pretty well-liked guy. You talked about White. Here's a guy that, goes to Florida State. Florida State's a dumpster fire. He signs with Jimbo. Willie Taggart, terrible coach, comes in, terrible staff. They move him to linebacker, and so he leaves and goes to a junior college in Iowa. Iowa Western. Eastern Iowa is closer to Illinois, Chicago, University of Iowa. Western Iowa is out in the middle of nowhere. Becomes the number one junior college running back in the country. Comes in last year late because of COVID and all that, and he had to get eligible. First carry, I think he got thrown for a 6-yard loss against Tennessee. He's dancing in the hole. His fundamentals, he can't hold on to the football. He's fumbling. Every reason – with the coaching change, every reason to go in the portal right away, right?
Yep.
I'm going to go. This is not for me. I'm gone. Instead, this guy takes pride in playing special teams on a team whose season's lost and volunteers to go play safety. The last thing he wanted to do was go to defense, but he did it for the team.
Yep.
And that's why when the new staff got there, they love this guy. They love it. And on top of everything else, I think sometimes because of the season Harris had last year and then Marshawn Lloyd being one of the best backs in the country as a recruit, the tendency is to kind of forget Zaquandre. Oh, yeah, he's good. He's tough. He's a glue guy. But he's more than a glue guy. He's really talented.
He's really good. And he's gonna play in the NFL. For people that think he's not, he's going to play in the NFL.
Some of the runs he's made this year are exactly what showed up on film at Iowa Western and down there in Fort Myers, Florida, when he was a top, 130 recruit coming out of high school. I just think, sometimes he gets lost in translation or whatever.
Well, and look, sometimes he dances around a little bit out there, JC, but you know what stops all that? Playing time. The more he plays, seriously, you know this, you've been evaluating kids for 20 years. The more you play, the better you understand the game, the better you see it. And that's all he needs is to play. He averages 7 yards a carry, boys and girls. They're about to play in last I checked, the 10th game of the season. He's good.
Yeah. I mean, he is really good. And you could probably have made a case. I mean, he needs blocking like everybody else. Don't get me wrong. But, and he can catch passes and, he can return kicks, I think, if you needed him to. I mean, he's good. Juju McDowell's a good player. And that was another thing about Saturday night that warmed my heart is that it's a challenge when you got 4 backs. You're like, how in the world are we going to do this? And then there's the question of who does what role, and it was a complaint. Why don't they just let White and McDowell play primary slot and then, run Lloyd and Harris? And they kind of done that, except for it's White and Harris, and then Lloyd gets some carries as well. But all 4 running backs had great games. I mean, and this is what it was supposed to be like. Even Juju McDowell, who limited carries or whatever out of the Wildcat, scores the first touchdown of the game. That's huge. If he gets stuffed or fumbles or makes a mistake, especially running the daggum Wildcat down there again, the momentum of the game maybe changes. And maybe Carolina doesn't, because it's 7-3 Florida at that point. And he charges right up in there and scores. Everybody's fired up. White had a 54-yard run. Kevin Harris takes off around the left side, 39-yard run, 22-yard run at the end. And then I mentioned Lloyd's 40-yard run, which is really, really warmed my heart because he had room. You see what happens with his acceleration. Again, it had probably been a touchdown, in my opinion, had he saw the guy out of his peripheral. He just cut it a little closer, right, and turned it upfield, and then it's a foot race, and nobody's going to catch him. But those are the things he's kind of feeling his way through, and next time he'll go,
Yeah.
And that's good because those four guys are four of the best players on offense. I mean, that's just the bottom line. Carolina's heavy at running back and light at receiver. And so, that's a good thing. And I thought the usage made a lot of sense, how they were using these guys. So, we'll see what happens. I like I said, I'm not backing off the criticism I had, the first 8 games of the year. I think a lot of it was inexcusable. A lot of it was self-inflicted. But I also believe that people, it's not over till it's over. And unless you're just going to fire him right now or whenever, he deserves the chance as long as he's on the job and getting paid by the University of South Carolina to be able to fix it, because I've never thought the fixes were that difficult. Like Clemson's got issues right this year with their offensive line that they're not going to be able to fix. Carolina's issues with their offensive line were fixable because it was mental and assignment oriented and things like that. Clemson's just not very good up front. They have to kind of Tony Elliott's going to earn his paycheck working the smoke and mirrors, running DJ, whatever. Clemson can't go pick up a slot receiver in the middle of the year. There's a lot of teams that can't fix their issues. The run game at South Carolina and thus the offense has always been fixable. And I've been telling people that, some people want to make excuses and say, well, there's no talent, and then blame it on Muschamp. You can't blame Will Muschamp for the offense the first, 8 games of the year. You can blame him for the people being outraged by it because you sat through 4 years of bad offense before. But, I've never thought for a minute that the issues on offense were just talent related. And now, should we expect what they did Saturday night every single game against every opponent? No, not under any circumstances. These teams coming up are going to be good, and you're not always going to have that kind of night or day. But I think if Carolina can continue to execute their assignments, the offensive line can continue to play with the passion. White, Lloyd, Harris, Juju, whoever continues to run hard, and then Jason Brown continues to remain calm and cool and make plays, this offense has a chance, combined with the obvious improvement on defense in the run game, to really make some things happen down the stretch and to send South Carolina to a nice bowl, and which would be great for these players who have been through so much crap. Be big for Shane Beamer, big for recruiting in the off season, and everybody's sort of feeling hunky-dory if you do that. Even if you win one, and it's the one at the end of the year, everybody's feeling hunky-dory. So you mentioned hope at the opening, JB, and I think that's, again, allegory of life. We all need hope in life, and we need hope in football.
Right now, Carolina's got it, and they created it on their own Saturday night at Williams-Brice Stadium, 40-17 over the Gators. Before we let you run here, we'll get a brief look at Missouri. We're still waiting to kind of get final word on Connor Bazelak. Yesterday, Coach Drinkwitz did say that an injury report will be out on Thursday. So tomorrow seems like the day as to when the rest of the world will find out whether Bazelak will play. It is a struggling offense this year. Everybody thinks Bazelak is this, that, and the other, and they can really score. They've scored 18 points average in the SEC when you don't include Vanderbilt. So it's not been that good. By the way, a couple other quick injury notes with QBs. Looks like Grayson McCall could be out for the year up at Coastal Carolina. We're going to keep our eyes on that. He's got an upper body injury. Didn't play this weekend, of course, but could be out for the year. Jake Bentley could be out for the year as well. Torn MCL, and it's looking more and more like his season and college career more than likely will be over with that, that just sucks.
Makes me sick to think about Jake hurting his knee again. I mean, he
just sucks. They got, I think, who do they have coming up this weekend? App State, I think. I mean, it's a big game.
And he's had a pretty good year for those guys down there. It's just
you'd had a former Carolina and a former Clemson quarterback in that game, by the way. Chase Bryce, Jake Bentley.
Chase Bryce. Now there's one that you started thinking I was wrong about him because I've never been a DJ Ungalali guy. I've always kind of thought, this guy's a 5-star guy because he's got a big arm, and I was like, I thought Jamarcus. I said somewhere between Jamarcus Russell, who was good in college, number 1 pick overall, but never was like he cost LSU some games or whatever, and then or Dante Culpepper. I don't think he's either one of those guys. But I had a little feeling. I thought, looking at Dabo's MO over the years, Chase Bryce may start for a year just because Dabo loves to reward those guys, and maybe they bring DJ along a little slower than people thought. And maybe that was right. And then Bryce goes to Duke last season and just stinks it up. Mm-hmm. Goes to App State. I was like, it's probably not a good fit for him because App likes to run their quarterback, but not. He's torn it up there. So hats off to Chase Bryce. Brother, I knew you were good. I knew you could do it. And App State's really playing well this year. And they're I think that program is here to stay. Not sure about Coastal Carolina, but I think that program up at App's here to stay.
And final couple thoughts on the game this weekend, JC. Obviously, we're gonna have you back on Friday for the Big Gamecock preview show. But as it's looking more likely that Tyler Macon, the dual threat quarterback, will end up probably being the guy who gets the nod for Mizzou. But just a couple of surface observations that you've got about the Tigers thus far this season as we head into Game 10 for Carolina.
Yeah, Tyler Macon could potentially be problematic. He's an East St. Louis kid, has a lot of moxie, I guess, and he can run. So kind of like Florida, you really are going to have to bottle him up because you start talking about him and Tyler Beatty, who their offense sort of goes as they do. I thought Tyler Macon actually played pretty decent against Georgia, and then you never know. Second start, guys can sometimes break out. He's a true freshman, though. Carolina stopped a grizzled veteran in Emory Jones, and I think Drinkwitz running the ball with him is something to kind of keep an eye on. They also have a redshirt freshman, Brady Cook, who's a little bit more of a thrower, but he can also run and got some talent. He's a bigger kid, 6'3", 217. But that's going to be really important for South Carolina because, if Bazelak can't go, and Bazelak's not been a world beater this year. He looked really good last season. He hadn't been a world beater this year. And they have some sort of special prep, I guess, that catches the Gamecocks off guard. That could hurt the Gamecocks' chances on defense, but I think this is certainly something Clayton White has to be aware of. And watching him, play last week, he did some nice things. So we'll see what happens with their quarterback situation. I still think stopping Tyler Beatty is going to be really, really important for anybody who wants to slow Missouri down, and some teams have had success with it. And then the short passing game, Drinkwitz loves to throw those little short ones and keep everybody in front of you and tackle well. So that's going to be the key for the Gamecocks defense. Missouri has a pretty good offensive line, but Carolina's got a pretty good defensive line, right? So
yeah,
the one matchup that would concern me is Carolina gets blocked. Beatty, when he gets to the secondary and linebacker, he can make some. He could a big play waiting to happen. So you got to be careful with that.
Yeah, the hope too is Carolina just runs it down their throats. Missouri hasn't stopped the run all year. South Carolina seemingly really got it going last week against the Gators. We'll see if they can keep that going in Columbia, Missouri, coming up on Saturday. We're going to bring all of this down on Friday afternoon of the Big Gamecock Preview Show. JC, Michael Flint will join Darren and I here in the 1 o'clock hour. On that note, BigSpur.com has you covered, as always, throughout the week. A lot of basketball going on right now to go along with Carolina football. And remember, it's also National Signing Day. So they got plenty going on over there in regards to that. But we'll let you run on that note, JC. Good stuff. We didn't give you a bathroom break today, so we appreciate you sitting through it.
Yeah, I didn't drink that much coffee this morning, so I didn't necessarily have to go. So that's a good thing. Good. I would have gotten up and gone. But I didn't. Well, I hope so. You're only cool if you pee your pants. That's what they say. Everybody's peeing their pants. All right. Well, hey, guys, looking forward to the preview show and talking about another. Hey, this game, you get a trophy for winning this game. Of course, you get a trophy if you win the A&M Carolina game, too. Carolina's never even seen it. Yeah, we don't know much about that. But they do know about this one. They're going to try to get it back on Saturday. Got to get that trophy back. I've said you got if you're Shane Beamer, first order business, turn around Tennessee, turn around Kentucky, turn around Missouri. The first two things did not happen, so here's another opportunity. It's a big one. See you Friday. All right, see you. There you go, JC Shurburtt, owner of the BigSpur.com. Thanks to Frank Martin for joining us in hour number 1. It was great to catch up with a wonderful person, the head basketball coach of the Gamecocks. They got another one coming up on Friday night in Asheville against Princeton on ESPN News. Happy birthday to the United States Marine Corps. That, once again, the military salute on Saturday night at Williams-Brice during halftime was one of the best halftime shows in the country every year. It's unbelievable. So right in line with that. Happy birthday, Marines. Thank you for what you do for us. Thank you to Darren and all of you. Head to the Dog and Duck. It's the Grab Bag Burger Wednesday thing, and they're fantastic. And they have a bunch of cheese, and they're the thin patties, and they're all smash burgers. Hey. We're back tomorrow at noon, and we'll see you then on the JB and Goldwater Show, presented by Motley Rice.